Welcome back, everyone. It has been a couple of weeks since Maddie and I have been on your screens, and I can tell you I've missed it.
I've missed it too, Natalie. I kind of miss this place. We haven't been here for like almost 2 weeks.
I know.
But a lot has happened in the Missouri sports world since we've been on TV.
That's right, and I think it's only right to start off with the team that completely shocked Mizzou Nation. I'd like to thank the football team.
Yeah, the Missouri football team started with a 1-5 record, and now they ended the regular season with a 7-5 record, and they're going bowling, which we thought was a hot take.
No one thought that would happen.
No one thought that.
Hey, our hot take actually worked out for once.
Yeah, so that's something to be positive about. But I think a lot of it came from quarterback Drew Lock.
Yes.
Junior quarterback Drew Lock. He broke an SEC record. He has 43 single touchdowns on the year. He's up there with some pretty elite players.
Peyton Manning up there, Johnny Manziel, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Up there with good company, for sure.
Exactly, and he was breaking all kinds of records. He also broke the record for Missouri, throwing more than 38 touchdowns. He's the first SEC quarterback to throw more than 3 touchdowns in 8 consecutive games. I honestly think Drew Lock is still one of the most underrated quarterbacks. I'll take it back to when we went to the SEC media days back in the summer when Jordan Rogers called it himself.
Exactly.
So I think he's kind of right, and I've always been a Drew Lock fan. And like you can see on the TV right here, these touchdowns are pretty.
He's got a Sunday-type arm. We've been saying it all along. He has a Sunday-type arm. He's working on his telegraphing a little bit still, but I think what do you think about, there's been a lot of NFL talk. Do you think Drew Lock's going to go to the draft?
I think if Drew Lock goes to the draft this year, it would be unfortunate for Mizzou. I don't think he's honestly ready. I am probably one of the biggest Drew Lock quarterback fans. I think he's a great quarterback. Like we said, he has that Sunday-type arm. But I think he needs another year in college football. I think if he plays out his senior year with the Tigers, I think his telegraphing is going to get a lot better. We've seen him put up the most points against the Georgia's defense this year. But I also think against a good Auburn team, a good Georgia team, we didn't really see much out of a Purdue, South Carolina type teams.
Exactly.
So I think we're seeing a good Drew Lock towards the end of this season.
Yeah.
So I think if he stayed one more year, he would be silly to go this year, maybe go 3, 4
He could
rounds.
grow, get a higher draft,
Yeah, he
build
could
his draft
definitely
stock a
grow
little
during
bit.
his senior year. And I definitely think he could possibly be a first or second round take.
I think he could be a
Call in a
first
hot
round
take right here. If Drew Lock stays for his senior year, he will be a first or second round pick in the NFL.
Hey, our hot takes are working out lately.
Hot takes are working out, so maybe Drew Lock, you should stick around.
I think you also got to look at who's supporting Drew Lock, too. Drew Lock has a pretty good offense supporting him, and Jamon Moore and Albert Akawebunam.
Yep.
Jamon Moore has been getting a lot more constant lately. He had a little bit of a shaky season at the beginning, I think, but he just has the 4th most receiving yards. I think it was last game he had the 4th most.
He tied Jeremy Macklin, if I'm correct.
Yeah, and then he had a very good game against Vanderbilt, very good game against Arkansas, despite a little shakiness from Arkansas there. But I think you really got to look at who's supporting Drew Lock as well, because that's what it's all about. If you don't have the supporters, you're not going to,
And Emmanuel Hall stepped up, like you said. Jamon Moore stepped up. And also, Drew Lock has a running game, too, so he doesn't really always have to rely on that passing game. So I think that's another thing that surrounded him. But I think he would be silly not to wait his senior year just to kind of feel things out a little bit. But I don't know.
I agree with you there. And then you also got to look on the other side of the ball. The defense has improved a ton this year. Terry Beckner Jr. has been who we've been talking about. What do you think of Terry Beckner Jr. in the last few games?
Like we've said about Drew Lock, he's kind of in the air about going to the NFL too.
He is.
I think if he went to the NFL this year, I think that would kind of be a smart decision after the year he has had this year for the Tigers.
And quite a year he's had after fighting 2 knee injuries in the past there.
Exactly. So I definitely think Terry Beckner Jr. is what Missouri's defense needed coming into these last 6 straight wins. They had some big road wins, and I think that he was just what Missouri's defense, like I said, needed. So I think that
he's perfectly built for that defensive tackle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's really a bona fide NFL talent, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that. But you also got to look at Cale Garrett, the inside linebacker. He's had some pretty good stats coming up. He's had 9 tackles for loss and 3 sacks on the season, one of the team leaders in that. And he really brings that competitiveness and toughness to the line that I really think Missouri's lacked a little bit in the season. So I think he's also one to look at, one that we really haven't mentioned that much this season.
Same with Marshall Frazier. We kind of talked about him at the beginning of the year. He had a career high with 8 tackles and 2.5 tackles for a loss with a sack and 3 pass deflections.
Yeah.
That's something that kid should have and moving into this bowl game that Missouri earned themselves very well, coming with winning their last 6 straight games. I think that all has to start with the Missouri's defense. They held a lot of teams to just very little points. Arkansas was the one team that they did let score, I think it was 45.
Higher scoring game than I expected.
Higher scoring game for Missouri's defense, which was a little bit. You're on the road. It's after Thanksgiving break. Thanksgiving. It was Friday
break,
after
yeah.
Thanksgiving break. So I think that Missouri's defense had a really consecutive 5 games, and in that Arkansas game they did give up 45 points. But Arkansas was a decent team, so I think that Missouri's defense had to kind of like wiggle with some of their like mistakes.
And they were the storyline that everyone was watching this season.
Yeah.
Because I really don't think the offense did have some shaky points in the season, there's no doubt. But I think the defense has been the thing that people are like, wow, Missouri needs to improve on their defense. And really, if you look at the beginning of the year, their first game, letting up all those points against Mo State to now, I think it's a complete 180 from where they were.
And I think that comes with Coach Barry Odom's press conference on September 23rd. After that Auburn
that marked
game,
the day.
That marked the day for Missouri's football team to turn this program around. He said he was going to bring this program to win a game, and he did. 6 consecutive wins. Is actually what that
he wasn't
Barry
lying.
Odom did. Yeah,
his hot takes are as accurate as ours.
Yeah, we should bring Barry Odom on T-Dub because he takes as many hot takes as we do. But I think that having that defensive mind from Barry Odom, I think that that kind of motivated the Missouri's defense to come out in every game and to play basically what they could have played at the beginning of the season. I think Mizzou could probably be 8-3 right now.
I agree.
If it wasn't, or 8-4 probably. Maybe 9-3. We'll see. We'll see.
But with that turnaround, you got to look. That turnaround did help them out a little bit because the first time since 2014 they are now bowl eligible. So they're going to find out their fate on Sunday. Do you have any projections on which bowl they're going to get?
I would say right now the Liberty Bowl. I've seen
Liberty Bowl is looking like a strong pick,
and that would be a great. It's really close. I think a lot of Mizzou fans would follow them to Memphis.
It makes sense geographically.
Geographically,
sure.
It makes the most logical sense to have that Mizzou Nation follow them to Memphis. I also just think I've seen a projection. It was going to be Mizzou versus Iowa State in the Liberty Bowl, or Mizzou versus West Virginia.
West Virginia is what I've heard too.
So I think those two teams would be great to see if this Missouri team that we seen close out the end of the season so well, if they could compete against a good West Virginia or a good Iowa State team. Just like we said at the beginning of the year, they couldn't compete with those good teams, so it'd be kind of interesting to see if they could compete there.
Exactly, and the Liberty Bowl has actually sent representatives to 2 of the last 3 of Mizzou's games, so I think that's looking like a strong contender. There's also the Texas Bowl is in the mix there a little bit. You know, LSU is going to be going to a bigger bowl game. A&M was in that bowl last year, so it kind of makes sense. There's not many logical teams that make sense other than that, but it is leaning a little bit towards the Liberty Bowl. That's my guess for sure.
If I was going to tell you right now, I would have to guess the Liberty Bowl. But we're going to have to wait till Sunday to see where Mizzou fans are, where they're going to go. The basketball team's been really hot lately, so we're going to give you the full scoop. Stay tuned.
Thank you for staying with us. We have the full scoop on Missouri basketball as promised.
That's right. The biggest news in Missouri basketball since gaining Michael Porter Jr. has been the loss of Michael Porter Jr. to a back injury. What do you think this means for Missouri?
I mean, obviously it's bad news. He played 2 minutes for Mizzou basketball. That's not what Mizzou fans were expecting at all, but you know, he's going to miss 3 to 4 months, for his spinal surgery, but I really don't think it's the end for Mizzou. You know what I mean? They have a strong team without him. They have backup. I don't think it's going to be the end. I don't think Michael Porter Jr. is the end-all, be-all for Mizzou, simply because they knew he was going to leave after a year anyway. I don't think they were completely – like, Konzo has the offense set up, so it's not necessarily built for a guy to shoot 20 or 30 points. It's meant for the ball, to share the ball, share the opportunity.
Quick offense.
Exactly. So I don't think it's the end of the season at all.
I totally agree with you there. I think actually Jonte Porter, Michael Porter Jr.'s younger brother, has definitely stepped up into that role since his big brother has been hurt. Like you said, he played 100 seconds for Missouri in a Tiger uniform, that Iowa State game, which is pretty depressing for Missouri fans. But I think, like you said, Missouri still has that deep bench that they can go to anytime at the game if they want to. I think it was one game over Thanksgiving break that Missouri's bench had 43 points off the bench right there. That's something that Missouri Tigers basketball team should be looking for. That's a positive to take.
For sure didn't have that last season.
No, last season they definitely didn't. And I think that Michael Porter Jr., without even playing, has brought so much to Missouri's basketball program in just the 9 months since the big turnaround from Konzo Martin coming to the school, MPJ signing his letter. Like, he brought Blake Harris with him. Jeremiah Tillman's a big threat for Missouri basketball, too, and he's young. He's that freshman.
Exactly.
So I think that
if Michael Porter Jr. doesn't play another minute, he still has done a lot for Missouri basketball, but I don't think it's the end of their season at all. I don't think their NCAA tournament hopes are completely done either.
I don't either. According to Michael Porter Jr.'s Instagram, let's look at
Throw
that.
up the Instagram on the screen. Yeah, just letting y'all know, whoever said it was going to take 3 to 4 months to recover lied.
With the winky faces at the emojis.
The winky face says it all. Michael Porter Jr. has been very cryptic about this injury. So.
Yes. And so I think that maybe he could return. We never know. 3 to 4 months, if Missouri makes a run in the NCAA tournament, that's 3 to 4 months MPJ comes back for the tournament, something the Tigers would honestly, that would just be great for them. I don't think they necessarily need him. Yeah, it's going to be great.
Obviously, it would be a bonus to have
him,
Michael Porter Jr. playing for you, but I don't think it's the end-all, be-all for them at all. But looking at that bench, the bench is getting in a little bit of foul trouble lately. We saw it at the Advocare tournament. They're getting in a lot of trouble. Jeremiah Tillman's one of the big ones getting in trouble.
Yeah, Jonte Porter fouled out of the last 2 games. Jeremiah Tillman also has had some really bad foul trouble. I think
he has 27 fouls already this season.
Yeah, 27 fouls in how many games has Missouri played? Probably 6?
Yeah.
7? 6 or 7? 6.
I mean, he's coming in as a breakout star, but they need to keep him on the floor. If you can't keep him on the floor, what is it going to do for you?
Especially in the first half when you're in that 2 foul trouble. Really, Conzo Martin can't keep him out there with the with the threat of having him get his 3rd in the first half and then not using him at all in the second half. So Jeremiah Tillman just really kind of needs to lay back on the fouling.
Pump the brakes.
And I think that refs kind of just see him as this big guy.
He's 6'10". He doesn't know where. I don't think he knows where his body is at some point.
He's still kind of in that lengthy little movement. But I think if Jonte Porter and Jeremiah Tillman can keep on the court as long as they can, if Martin can just keep relying on them, Missouri's basketball team has nothing. Like we saw in the Advocare tournament, they put on quite a show. So I think with them just being able to just be on the court at all times, it's just going to be something that Missouri basketball will have as a threat, which they didn't get to have last year. So.
Yeah. And you mentioned Jonte Porter with the foul trouble, but Jonte Porter has actually been one of the best all-around players for Mizzou.
Yes.
What have you seen from him lately?
I think Jonte Porter it was a game, West Virginia game, when they played in the Advocare Championship game, which just to have Missouri basketball there from what they were last year was a huge step in the right direction. But Jonte Porter had 9 points, 9 rebounds, 5 blocks, 2 assists, and 1 steal. That's something.
Quite some stats.
That's quite some stats on both sides of the court. We saw Jonte a threat in the offense, but you also see Jonte as a threat on the boards, on the defensive side. And just having him on the court, like I said, is something that Missouri really needs to keep him on the court. And I think that they're going to start relying on Jonte more. And it's kind of his breakout season with his brother. He's probably
his chance to step up.
It's his chance to kind of step in the spotlight after Michael Porter Jr. has been hurt. He's always been in the shadow of him. So I think this might be Jonte's season to start getting things rolling and really make a name for himself and who he is as a player and not just Michael Porter Jr.'s brother.
And it says a lot that he showed up that much in the Advocare tournament because, honestly, those were the best tests before conference play. You got St. John's, you got West Virginia. I think those are the biggest tests they had before conference play came up. And they showed up. They didn't fall behind too much. No. They hung with them, you know what I mean? They took the lead a few times. So I don't think it's a bad thing at all that MPJ's out. It obviously is bad, but I don't think it's going to hurt them that much. But one thing Missouri does need to work on, we've been talking about all week, they don't have a strong point guard. No. We saw that in Terrence Phillips and Jordan Geist in the championship game.
Exactly. Just the Missouri point guards alone gave up 12 out of the 20 total turnovers in the West Virginia game. And it was from minute 7:19 to 6:15. Missouri had 5 turnovers in just 1 minute, and that's when everything went downhill. Missouri had a 16-point lead. When your guards can't break a press, that's just going to get you in trouble later on in the conference. You have a good conference, actually. The SEC is probably going to be a really strong conference in basketball, which is abnormal.
I'd agree.
Usually with Florida, Kentucky, Alabama's looking pretty good this season too. So Missouri's guards have to learn how to protect the ball and get the ball over the court within 10 seconds.
Yes.
And I think that's where Missouri lost it, was like we said. They put Terrence Phillips in, he couldn't get the ball across. Then you put Jordan Geist in, he can't get the ball across. And then they didn't play Blake Harris to the last minute of the game, which was still confusing to me. And Conzo Martin needs to use him just
Blake
a little
Harris,
more.
though, I think, in my opinion, a point guard is one of the most difficult jobs to teach someone as a freshman.
Definitely.
Because think about it, you got to limit the turnovers, you got to find the scores, and you got to really take care of the ball. I think that's one of the most difficult jobs, and I think that's why they're not playing him as much. Because I think Blake Harris is still growing. So I think maybe when he grows a little bit more, gets a little more college experience, and like playing in the NCAA, maybe they'll play him a little bit more. But I don't think they should lead with the Jordan Geist and Terrence Phillips necessarily.
I definitely agree. I think that's going to be Missouri's biggest problem. And I think we talked about this a few shows ago. We were like, what's Missouri's biggest problem going to be? And we thought chemistry. I think the chemistry is there. Right now it has to be those point guards. protecting the ball. You cannot have 5 turnovers in a minute.
No.
That's like a turnover over 20 seconds, and that's
You're going to lose every game if you
you're
do
gonna lose
that.
every game, and that's when a good team, like a ranked West Virginia team, buries you. I think it was said that West Virginia ended the game on a 31-11 run to take that tournament title right out of Missouri's hands, which a lot of Missouri fans thought they had going into the last 8 minutes of the second half with a 16-point lead. But I think that's going to be Missouri's biggest problem. I think that's what they need to work on in practice. Going into conference play here in a few weeks, you got to kind of see if Blake Harris is going to be your go-to guy as a freshman, or you're going to rely on the veterans Terrence Phillips and Jordan Geis in that point guard position.
Going into conference play, what do you think their future is without MPJ in conference play?
I think Missouri can compete in conference play because of the players they have, like we talked about. Jordan Barnett had a big game in that last tournament. The West Virginia game, he had 21 points. I think Jordan Barnett's a big threat. Kevin Puryear.
Kevin Puryear's improved a lot in the past year.
I think just didn't have the team around him last year to show the talent he's shown us this year. So I think
and the coach.
Yeah. Conzo Martin, I think I'm pretty confident Conzo Martin coaching very well in SEC play. Like we said, Blake Harris, as soon as he kind of gets his rhythm down, I think he's going to be another threat. Jordan Geis, Cullen Van Leer, kind of iffy right now. One has a good game, one has a bad game. You have Cassius Robertson on the team too.
He's been sinking his threes left and right.
So if he can continue sinking those threes, I don't think you count Missouri out of the SEC. I think they'll be one of those teams that can compete with a good Florida team, a good Alabama team. And
compete with a Kentucky?
No.
We'll see.
We're going to have to see on that one.
That's a little far off, but it will be interesting to see how the Tigers do adjust without their superstar. However, don't go anywhere because we aren't finished yet. Maddie and I will be giving out our 3 stars of the week. Don't touch that dial.
Thanks again for sticking with us. Natalie and I would like to introduce a brand new segment called 3 Stars.
That's right. Maddie and I will agree on 3 athletes that really showed up for Missouri in the past week.
This week, our first star will go to redshirt senior Melanie Crow from the volleyball team.
She had quite a few matches over the weekend.
She did. Florida and Alabama. She had 2 aces, 5 blocks, and 29 kills. She set a career high with 12, but then broke it the next game with 17. So I think that's something that she definitely deserves one of our first stars of the week. I think that she just has really been putting that senior leadership on the court for the volleyball team, too, as they're heading into the NCAA tournament against the border rivals, Kansas.
She said she really doesn't care too much about rivalry games. She's excited to play it, but she doesn't really care too much. She's just going to play it like a match is a match is a match. You know what I mean?
So I think Melanie Crow will definitely be one of those key players for the Missouri volleyball team heading into the NCAA tournament. Gameplay starting on Friday, so we'll see if she can continue her hot streak.
We really haven't touched on volleyball that much lately. She was one we talked about at the beginning of the year, who we said she was going to be a leader coming off of her injury, and she really has broke out even more after her injury. I think she's stronger than ever.
I could not agree more with you, and I think her stats show it. So I think she's well
deserving. The stats definitely reflect it, but our second star of the week broke 2 SEC records over the weekend. I'm sure you can all guess who it is. Our second star will go to Drew Lock.
Drew Lock, we kind of
I'm
talked
going to leave it to you for this
We talked about him in the first segment. He has an SEC record with 43 total touchdowns in just 1 season. SEC co-offensive player of the week. He was one of the 8 Manning Award star of the week. I mean, the list goes on and on. He's only thrown 12 interceptions this year. His completion rate was 58.8%, which I think could be a little bit higher if his wide receivers didn't drop so many passes.
Let's put it on the wide receivers.
We'll put it on the wide receivers. But I definitely think Drew Lock was well deserving of our second star just because, like we've talked about, he's really leading his offense to a 6-game winning streak. And I think that he's kind of just sitting there as a junior who finally has that leadership and is getting better at telegraphing like we talked about.
He is. He has really been a strong leader in the past few weeks. So I think he is very deserving of our second star. But that's not the last star we have to give out.
Our final star would be given to the young superstar from the Missouri basketball team. Can you guess it? Jonte Porter.
Jonte deserves it. After standing in Michael's shadow for so long, he's finally becoming, I think he's grown a lot even just since reclassifying. He's a lot more well-rounded, I think.
No, and I definitely think that he's really stepped up as a leader, like you said, with his brother's injury. He's really just taken the Missouri Tigers basketball team on his back and said, hey, let's finish this year out. Maybe we can run into the NCAA.
As a freshman, too.
As a freshman, they can make a run into the NCAA tournament, and he gets his brother back in the court with them just to play for a few games. Would be an awesome. That would be the best scenario, I think, for all Mizzou fans. But I definitely think Jonte Porter was well deserving of that final star. He's just turned 18 a couple weeks ago.
You can tell sometimes,
You can tell.
He's smiling so big when he runs
is.
down that court. He's so happy.
He is so happy to be out on that court. And I think that he really is going to show that moving on, like we said, in the SEC play for basketball, competitive teams. I think he's going to definitely be that, like, dark horse for the Tigers team and that really go-to guy.
I don't think people really expect that much of him because all the talk has really been on Michael Porter Jr., even Jeremiah Tillman and some of the older players. But when Jonte reclassified, I don't think there was as much attention on him. So I think he's really coming out and kind of, like, proving some people wrong.
Yeah.
Good for him. Good for him. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this show. However, be sure to check out all of our social media accounts at 23 Sports MUTV on Facebook and Twitter, and at MUTV on Snapchat for all of your sports updates.
Also, check out our website, mutv.missouri.edu, and mutvstream.missouri.edu for the best movies on campus. Did you watch any movies over break?
I failed you again.
Again, I need a new co-host. Someone who watches movies.
I promise you on Halloween.
Halloween.
We're past
Thanksgiving. We're about ready for Christmas, so
I'm probably fired.
Natalie does not have a Christmas movie as her favorite movie next week. She's fired. But for everyone in the studio and my co-host, Natalie Jones, have a good night.